They dance down the streets like dingledoodies, and I shambled after as I've been doing all my life after people who interest me. Because the only people for me are the mad ones. The ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything all at once. The ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn, 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 like fabulous yellow Roman candles exploding like spiders across the stars. And in the middle, you see the blue center light pop, and everybody goes, ah. That is from Jack Kerouac's On the Road, which is a place I've spent a lot of my life. And that road has brought me a great journey that has allowed me to meet some amazing people. Waddy White is a friend that I've had now coming on 20 years, and he's one of the mad ones. And I'm more than honored that he asked me to be a part of his 100 People project. While the night that he captured the photo on a visit, we were having a great time and it was a little spontaneous, and I regret only that I was a few months postpartum and wearing a maternity dress. Other than that, the image that he caught I do love because it captures our refusal to be complacent and to be complicit in the face of things we need to stand up against. Whitey and I have a shared belief in community and support and in help and in hope. And in 2020, the year of the COVID, I've been inspired by the fact that we have joined together in many communities to move our lives inside in order to help those who can't be helped, in order to save our greater world in trying to get ahead of a pandemic. I'm inspired by everyone who joins me in saying, Black lives matter, trans lives matter, love is love is love, science is real, women's rights are humans' rights, no human is illegal, kindness matters. There's more that connects us than that divides us. And in taking our individual humanity and rising up together with the tide, our drops of water are like an ocean. That's something that I talk about in my work as an artist, and something that Wadi talks about in his work. I'm Soumiya Lakshmi Krishnaswamy, and this is my studio in Brooklyn, New York, and a beautiful sunny day. And like Wadi, I make paintings that talk about the human condition. And Wadi is, as you can see, he is literally and representationally depicting people, the things they do, the stories they have to tell, the places they are, and inviting you into their worlds. Thank you for coming to see mine, and creating that kind of conversation. In my own, I talk about humanity in a non-figurative way. One of the things that I think we all have to contend with is that in being human, we have to experience sometimes soul-crushing, incomprehensible, existential struggles. But in doing that, we find beauty, we find laughter, we find love, we find change, growth, and community. And that these things are cyclical, that there's no grotesque without beauty, there's no laughter without pain, and that we need one to beget and to move through the other. It's how we share in music and art and poetry and community building, and sometimes just how we put one foot in front of the other every day. I wanted to share with you something that one of my great inspirational artists said a few years ago that I think maybe speaks a little bit to how and why I make my art, which I kind of call process art. So William Kentridge makes lots of speeches. He's a wonderful instructor, and I got to hear him speak on this one at the Brooklyn Public Library a couple of years ago. One of the things he says is on provisionality. Number one can look at the world as either fact or process. In a photograph, one has a fact. Here's the table, a wooden sculpture stand, there's the chair, There's the tripod. Here is a book on the table. You take a photograph, and these are the facts of the studio. Or one could make a film and think of all this as provisional, as one frame in a string of frames with a history both backwards and forwards. Run the film backwards, the book is unbound. The pages are uninked. The blank pages return to the wood pulp from which they were made, into the planks which have been shredded, back to the tree. Run the tree backwards. The tall branches shrivel and get smaller. The trunk gets thinner and lower. It becomes a sapling, and the sapling disappears back down under the earth into its acorn. Or, to run the film from the present fact forwards, it expands in the opposite direction. The book no longer on the shelf, the book on the pavement, the book in the fire, the smoke, the ashes. Now the book is seen as one moment in this process of mutation. On provisionality number 2, this physical provisionality also alerts us to other kinds of provisionalities. The certainty of knowledge being a moment of coherence amongst a sea of possible other senses and meanings. It alerts us to the precarious victories we thought solid and established, whether they're victories of civil rights, victories of democracy, victories of rationality. We understand how fragile they are, and that they were wrested out of ignorance, so superstition, bigotry, and have a moment of flowering. But there's ahead of them also the enormous danger of them disintegrating back into the fire, into the ash, into the smoke. The material is always, at least for an artist, the only way to think about the immaterial. The material is the only way for me to think about the immaterial. And behind me, you can see some of my paintings, which are very much embedded in the material as a vehicle to get to the more intangible, harder to discuss thoughts of the immaterial conditions of human existence. I'm very concerned with mark and texture and color, and particularly in these works, spirals and the tension and the expansion and the movement of these marks. I am engrossed and interested in how these communicate against time, culture, across these spaces, where I always felt very other, very disconnected, very much on the outside looking in, a very Alice in Wonderland, through the looking glass, down the rabbit hole existence. And when I encountered art and I saw how cave painters from tens of thousands of years ago, or sculptors or painters from 10, 50, 100, 200 years ago could speak to my soul in a way that I felt like they were present right now, it became timeless, and it became imperative, and it became essential. I think that we have to remember to use our voices in whichever way it is that we can to own our time and our space on the planet. There's one more thing I'd like to read for you from a French feminist philosopher by the name of Hélène Cixous, who I think is really great and fun and inspiring. This is from her Laugh of the Medusa, which I believe is from about when I was born. I, too, overflow. My desires have invented new desires. My body knows unheard of songs. Time and again, I, too, have felt so full of luminous torrents that I could burst with forms much more beautiful than those which are put up in frames and sold for a fortune. And I, too, said nothing, showed nothing. I didn't open my mouth. I didn't repaint my half of the world. I was ashamed. I was afraid. And I swallowed my shame and fear. I said to myself, "You are mad!" What's the meaning of these waves, these floods, these outbursts? Where is the ebullient, infinite woman who hasn't been ashamed of her strength? who, surprised and horrified by the fantastic tumult of her drives, for she was made to believe that a well-adjusted woman, normal woman, has a divine composure, hasn't accused herself of being a monster, who, feeling a funny desire stirring inside her to sing, to write, to dare to speak, in short, to bring out something new, hasn't thought that she was sick. Well, her shameful sickness is that she resists death, that she makes trouble. I don't know exactly when you're seeing this, but this past week we said goodbye to just, I think, one of the most amazing men who's walked the planet with us, the great John Lewis. And it's given me a lot of time to think about all these things because I really believe in him and what he's done. And he used his last strength and time on this planet to remind us of some things, to leave us some parting words, where he said that ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in good trouble, necessary trouble. So if I have a role to play in this project, then I want to share with you and to remind you and to inspire you that whatever your voice is, to find it. Find it. Make your mark, your literal mark, your figurative mark. Use your voice and figure out in what way you will refuse to be complicit. Because I promise you, if you'll join me, that we can get in good trouble and necessary trouble, and we can be the hope and change